in a way that no one expects.
Subverting expectations in and of itself is an accomplishment, regardless of how satisfying it is narratively.
Things that form expectations. 1. Promotional videos, teasers, trailers, posters and music videos. The first glimpse for an upcoming title given by the makers to the audience as means to pique their interest.
There is no longer any way to revive someone within the game. If your HP drops to 0, your avatar will be deleted from the system forever. And the nerve gear will simultaneously destroy your brain.
2. The description of the premise and the first episode. The first taste of a title that just begun establishing the premise and the tone of the show.
You know, I like plot twists that make the story less interesting.
3. Buzz or hype. The things that those who watch or follow a title say to those who haven't as means to pique their interest.
This was a very, very, very good series. They still care about plot, story, characters, and atmosphere. It's close to perfection. Definitely not a series I could recommend to someone if they don't understand the mature themes of it. This series definitely makes you think. A very mature series that doesn't hold your hand. Zenko no Terror, favorite anime of this damn season.
4. The aftermath. This will affect those who weren't motivated to watch the title while it was still airing. The audience and those with bad taste will simply focus on how much they liked it.
I grabbed my fucking heart, I was like, oh my god, that is too fucking sad.
The critics will focus on if its overall presentation and themes were done properly.
Beautiful anime are about a dime a dozen nowadays, but it's rare that you find an anime that has panache. You could easily tell that the most important things to the creators of this anime, and probably the manga as well, was the attention to style and creating a quirky atmosphere, and it does a great job at that.
And the makers will focus on how much it sold, because that is all it matters to them in order to call something a success and a huge effect on their future projects.
You see, I subverted your expectations
Oh my God,
by
that's-
subverting the subversion.
That's immediately
and the
satisfying.
thing that you thought was going to happen in the first place happens.
What are the effects of expectations? 1. Motivation. As much as we try not to have any expectations when getting into a title, it is impossible to do so. We need a reason to motivate us into starting or continuing something, hence the importance of looking forward to something through our expectations.
Nothing was accomplished, but I'm satisfied because you subverted my expectations.
2. Validation. As much as we try to have our own view of a title, it is extra rewarding when our view is shared by and coincides with others. This is why most seek to be part of big groups that have the same expectations as they do.
Really subverts your expectations.
3. Positivity. Even if we don't really have clear expectations for a title, we usually aim to see its positive side as means to feel nice and be energetic. This is why most seek to be part of groups that hype something or are motivated into doing activities thanks to it.
Because as long as you subvert expectations, it doesn't matter what you do.
4. Confirmation. As much as we like being surprised, most of the times we want to get what we assume we will get.
I called it from episode 1. I had high expectations, and Zenko no Terror met my expectations.
This is why people are usually disappointed when a title turns out to be not what they expected it to be. There are cases when they are pleasantly surprised, more specifically when they get far more than what they expected out of a title. As a rule of thumb though, people do not like being proven wrong, and it is hard to be pleased with things that don't turn out to be as expected. There are also cases when people are not particularly amused when they get exactly what they expected. If they found it mediocre, predictable, one of the same, and assume the title was average. In reality, they were never really that excited about it.
The important thing is subverting your expectations.
Right.
When the above do not apply, 1. Going in blindly. That is, getting into something without having the slightest idea of what it is about. A very risky move with a high chance of failure, but also an epic win in case it works.
Narratively, it might, make your entire movie fall on its face, but you subverted expectation.
2. Overthinking. Going way beyond what a show is about or what it shows you. You only see it as means to write about stuff that go through your mind.
There's 2 minutes of expectations that were subverted.
3. Second opinion. Deliberately seeing something from an angle most do not see, as means to check out how a title holds, with a mindset not shared by the majority.
You know why, Rich? Because we're subverting expectations.
Oh my god!
4. Close to zero expectations about what follows. It makes you accept an ending no matter what it is. A very common type of requests on Reddit is people asking for shows that will make them laugh or cry. I don't understand what they expect when they ask that. Let me narrate my reply to this pleb. By expecting to cry, you won't, because it's supposed to be an emotion that comes naturally, and not by forcing yourself. I mean, seriously, emotions are not something you expect to feel. You're not a robot that presses buttons to feel. Then there is this other pleb who complained about watching Madoka Magica and didn't find it shocking because everybody was telling him it would be shocking. Therefore, he was prepared about it. Let me narrate my reply again. Welcome to the wonderful realization of suggestions being spoilerish by default and how shock-based series work best only when you stumble upon them completely unaware. What that essentially means is that when you are too bored to check new series completely unaware until you find something you like, you resort to asking others where you can find a specific thing you seek, resulting to not finding it. A major reason of why people get bored or disappointed is because they are impatient and the element of surprise is gone forever. Don't blame a show for giving you exactly what you expected. Blame it if it fails to deliver what it promises through its script. One of the many things you can use as evidence of someone being critical is his perception of what it means to be surprised. I remember when I was a kid and still in my pleb phase, I was watching everything and I wasn't critical about anything. I also remember that the movies or series that I liked the most were those that were surprising me, and by surprise I mean not getting what I thought I was getting. This has to do with expectations, not how many of them were met, but rather how far off the expectations were from the actual product. Non-critical minds are most likely going to like something by simply being surprised when they are not getting what they expected. Critical minds will most likely going to like something by being surprised when they are getting more than they expected. In order to better visualize this, imagine case A being a threshold. If 0 is expectations, any divergence up or down will be the volume of surprise. Case B, on the other hand, is like a checklist. The volume of surprise has to do with how many things are not going to be on the list, as well as how many will be added as extra. Extra elements can be seen as a pleasant surprise, and lacking elements as disappointment. The thing with case B is that it's often seen as being closed-minded. It's as if you can never think outside the box, or you are stuck in liking the same things, or you refuse to adjust to the changes in entertainment. This is something I have heard a lot over the years. I am biased and like only obsolete formulas found only in retro series. The world has changed, snob. People no longer care about space and manly men. We now like schools and cute girls doing cute things. You are stuck in the past because you use a checklist of things people no longer care about. Well, that's because my taste has hardened over the years. You can't make me like something just because it's new or trendy. I have seen a lot and I have formed a specific mindset when I begin watching something. That is not being closed-minded. It's more about knowing how formulas work. So I have this checklist of things I expect to see. If I don't get all of them, something is off. I don't like the case of the threshold, which is usually associated with being open-minded. In this season we had Mayoiga, which was far from what most expected it to be like. Why should I love Mayoiga just because it's not what I expected? I expected a campy slasher story and I got an intentionally unintentional comedy. It's way less than I expected, and the subversion of expectations so many are using is not excusing it. Which brings me back to the logic of the threshold. If a show is as good as it manages to surprise you, what happens when you rewatch the series? You are no longer going to be surprised. So what, now the show is no longer good? What if someone reads a few reviews of a series and knows exactly what it's about? It's not good because he knows what he's getting? My point is that a critical mind has expectations not because it's biased or closed-minded, but because it has settled down on what counts as positive or negative. I have said in the past that it's better not to have high expectations when you begin watching something, but that doesn't mean that you should accept everything you see as it is. The point is to be pleasantly surprised, not simply surprised. Stop thinking like a relativist who thinks there is no right or wrong, and all it matters is to have feels. Be demanding, damn it! Most series have a preview at the end of every episode, which is often spoiling what will happen next. Episode summaries are the same, only on a much larger scale, since they are spoiling what will happen in the next 4 episodes. What's the difference between knowing the plot 1 episode ahead as opposed to 4? I made a topic in a Draggable subreddit about the effects of future episode summaries, and these are my finds. Obviously there is no difference if you simply avoid previews and summaries, but for the sake of argument, let's say you don't avoid them. For starters, the element of surprise is lost on a much larger scale. You know what will happen way sooner than you're supposed to, which takes out a lot of the fun. The second difference is that it gives you more time to anticipate how something will play out once you know it will happen. It increases your focus on direction. The third difference is that you no longer speculate how something may play out, since you know what will happen. It lowers the chances of theory crafting. The fourth difference is something that happens when everything is not going according to plan. Sometimes the translation of the episode summaries comes out wrong, other times it's fake, and in some very rare cases, the plot needs to change in the last moment due to unexpected developments during production. When this happens, episode summaries end up misdirecting the audience and surprise it by not giving it what it was prepared for. Therefore, they make things even worse than when you don't know what happens next. Information is power, misinformation is disaster.
In a way that no one expects.
I was thinking of doing weekly impressions on Dr. Stone, but from what I was told about it, it's not worth it. I began as usual by fishing answers from the subreddit, starting with my biggest grip of the first episode. I thought they would use the usual bullshit, but turns out it's actually something entirely different. Dr. Stone is not trying to be serious, it's not trying to be deep, and it's not trying to be psychological. The characters don't have problems with the end of the world as they know it, for the same reason the characters of the Pokemon series have no problems with 10-year-olds traveling all over the world with no supervision. It's not that kind of a show. Dr. Stone is a detective comedy about a blockhead who can't confess his love and a book-smart dude with Yu-Gi-Oh! Hairdo doing alchemy as if it's a video game. It's not gonna get any deeper than that. It's a shallow civilization building show that doesn't care about the nasty parts of creating a civilization. As such, I cannot make fun of it because it was written to be shallow. And I am telling you that in case you didn't know it and just like me, you expected it to be something else. It's very important to know what kind of a show you are watching, because many times you will dislike something for not being what you thought it would be. It happened with Erased, it happened with Mayoiga, it happened with Violet Evergarden. Lots of people couldn't pinpoint what kind of a show they're watching and were disappointed for not getting what they expected. Obviously, it's not always the viewer's fault for not getting it if the show has terrible tonal whiplashes or changes drastically from a point on. But even then, it's best to be warned about it if possible, even if it means getting spoiled about a few things. If it can clear things up from the start and lessens the disappointment of months of expecting something that is never going to happen, then getting spoiled is preferable. It will avoid a lot of drama and outcries. So in a nutshell, to hell with Dr. Stone, it's a dumb show not worth analyzing for its story or characters. But I will keep making fun of anyone who is trying to overthink it, like that idiot who said it's unlike anything we've seen before.
In a way that no one expects.
A Place Further Than the Universe has been making its rounds on YouTube as the best anime of the year. I really shouldn't be making this video, but I think A Place Further Than the Universe is underwhelming. That's not the popular opinion on YouTube right now. Dislike my video and click away. The experience I received from the show is different from most. I was not invested in the characters. That's not the popular opinion on YouTube right now. Dislike my video and click away. The biggest problem with this show is the amount of hype that surrounds it. I thought I was going to watch a masterpiece. All I got was a decent cute girls anime. My expectations were set way too high, which led to me being disappointed. That's not the popular opinion on YouTube right now. Dislike my video and click away. I genuinely believe the show was underwhelming, and my second favorite show of the season was Yuru Camp, which is a cute girls anime about camping. Let's talk about the actual best show of the season, Violet Evergarden. There is a separate meta-narrative, The Typewriter, able to express human emotion. It's incredible because it tells you so much in so little time. I am smart.
In a way that no one expects.
A guy pointed out how disappointed he was with Fire Force. The first episodes made it seem like it's going to be a semi-serious action-adventure against horrifying monsters that prey on humanity. A few episodes later it became heavy on fan service and the monsters lost their importance in favor of cartoon evil organizations of humans.
What did you expect?
The replies he got all had to do with lowering your expectations to the point you accept something as it is. It's shonen, so of course it's going to be full of fan service. That's how the manga was like, so why would the anime be any different? The monsters were never meant to be the main bad guys, and it's more interesting if it's cartoony evil organizations. It's not the show's fault, it's your fault for having the wrong expectations.
What did you expect?
It's a ridiculous type of defense nobody should be supporting. The show did have a completely different vibe when it began. The expectations it gave to the anime onlys were not headcanons, they were promised by the show itself.
When the show betrays its own premises by becoming a lot less than what it seemed to be at first, it's not the viewer's fault.
What did you expect?
Accepting something as it is means that you like it no matter how bad or good it is. The actual quality does not matter if you're going to like it no matter what happens. If you're willing to accept a show as it is, then you're never bothered by contradictions, plot holes, fillers, and the like. You become a blinded fanboy who will support something regardless of what it is.
What did you expect?
When people are disappointed with series such as Sword Art Online, Shield Hero, and Log Horizon, is it really their fault for not accepting them as crappy isekai, even though the early episodes promised them a lot more? Is it their fault when they listen to the hype of the fanboys and they come into their fandom by being promised greatness and get something completely unremarkable? Why would they settle for a lot less than what they came for? Is it their fault for not reading the source material first so they wouldn't be fooled by what comes next?
What did you expect?
Let's be honest here, okay? Many shows start in a completely different way, so they can attract a lot of people with good first impressions before turning into the mediocrities they were always meant to be. They just assume that once the viewer is hooked, he will keep watching no matter what they turned into, since you should accept a show as it is. It's a low-tier trick to fool the critically bankrupt people. Do not be stupid and don't fall for it.
In a way that no one expects.
I am following The Mandalorian that is airing right now, and I'm having a blast while I'm watching it. But when the episode ends, I think back to every scene and I keep finding a lot of weaknesses in the narrative. And then I check out what the channels I am following have to say about it, where I find very two specific mindsets. One is the nostalgia mindset, where people like it, because it has a lot of references to the older movies and the characters are not family-friendly, like what Disney did with the franchise. The other mindset is about those who didn't like it much because nothing grandiose is going on in it. It's a side story with very low stakes and doesn't seem to matter in the long run. Big portions of every episode is the main character walking and talking, which can be considered slice of nothing for the impatient ones. And yes, a lot of things are not making sense even within the established logic of the sci-fi setting. So essentially both mindsets are alright. It's a light in-plot series with good production values that constantly makes references to the movies. So the question is this: would I and the others like The Mandalorian as much as we do if the latest movies weren't so heavily flawed? I keep coming to the conclusion that I like it despite its problems because my expectations have been lowered considerably after the fiasco that was The Last Jedi. The show is not as good as my entertainment makes it seem to be because the Star Wars reputation has been ruined. And I think the same thing will happen with the upcoming The Rise of Skywalker movie. We have been bombarded with rumors about how terrible the plot is going to be, and we have lowered our expectations to the point we are not going to hate it as much as we did with The Last Jedi, when we had been bombarded with theories about the great things they're going to do with the various plot lines. It's no joke that infamy is still fame, and both the series and the third movie will be remembered in a more positive light than what they would be if the newer movies had a much more positive reception. It's a case of lowered expectations making it easier to enjoy something despite knowing it is flawed. And it's another proof of why hype is the death of enjoyment, since you will never be satisfied if your expectations about something are too high. And it's also evidence to why all those hype riders are touching their chin 24/7 when they keep hyping everything and then pretend they are constantly amazed with how everything is amazing and surpasses their expectations. Do not believe them. Say no to the hype and have low expectations for everything.
In a way that no one expects.
I often snoop around the writing subreddit, and one of the most common issues people have is not knowing how to end a story they are writing. The same can be said about any show or book in general. A good ending is hard. It needs to make sense, at the same time it has to be satisfying. Very few manage to do it right, and the main reason is because they snap plot threads. As a brilliant writer, I can tell you that everything boils down to plot threads. A line of events that leads to a logical conclusion. Whenever something is off, it's because a plot thread gets snapped, and what you get is not what the plot was supposed to be giving you. Even viewer expectations, the thing many mention every time they want to defend a show, comes down to the same issue. Whenever someone says, just because you didn't get what you expected, it doesn't mean the show is bad, Such a claim has nothing to do with what the show is preparing the viewer to expect, because viewer expectations are formed by the plot threads, and if they ever complain, it's because they are not getting what the show is preparing them for. Using this logic, most issues people have about a show can be easily zipped down to a plot thread that got snapped. In famous examples like the finale of Attack on Titan or the finale of Game of Thrones, don't have to do with not giving the viewers what they want, it's about not following their own plot threads to their logical conclusions. It's about replacing them with irrelevant threads, or ignoring them, or the worst case of them all, snapping them off and not bothering to continue. And this is where the problem lies from the side of the viewers. If they are not getting what they want, is often the result of the author never intending to go the way they want. He usually implies something is up only as a form of bait. Whether it's shipping or queer baiting or any other type of lure you can think of, it's a situation where the narrative becomes vague enough to allow the viewer to form headcanons for things that are not really plot threads. They are a hook at the end of a fishing rod. It's not meant to lead to something beyond keeping you engaged. But when the viewer gets bamboozled and he is convinced the bait is real, he creates his own narrative. And when that headcanon never pays off since the author never really intended to do something with it, the fans get pissed for not getting what they thought they were getting and they attack the author. Thus all the drama in the world starts and ends with plot threads snapping and pissing off anyone who was following them.
In a way that no one expects.
So I found this topic where someone said the harem aspect of Danmachi takes away from what is actually good about the show, which is the world building and the dungeon exploration. Pretty much everyone in the comments agreed to that, even though it comes down to a light novel, which means it has to appeal to Coomers. The logic of almost all light novels is to draw you in with a smut and keep you there with lore or video game mechanics. This is how they all sell themselves, and changing that would only create light novels that nobody would be reading. Proof of which is the Brestia phenomenon that happened during the first season, where nobody gave a shit about the world or the characters. They just saw a boob string and that was enough to please them. It's another case where viewer expectations clash with the selling point of a series and create a headcanon that is completely detached from reality. So no, you silly Redditor, removing the harem will not make Danmachi better, because it never tried to be good and the boob string is the only reason it got popular to begin with. Similarly to that, viewer expectations rarely have anything to do with what the show is actually about. What you think of what works in a series is not what the creator had in mind. This is why subversions are almost always coming from the viewer and not from the actual show. An example of that would be this video about Frieren.
It did so by breaking every rule shonen was supposed to follow. Frieren redefines heroism in shonen. Historically, being a shonen hero has been about the big moments, like defeating the big bad, saving people from disaster, or just shouting a lot. Frieren takes the notion that big moments make a hero and completely turns that on its head.
Nothing of what he said has anything to do with deconstructions or subversions. The entire premise is right there in the description of the series, and even if you go in completely blind, the show never attempts to hide what it's about just so it can shock you with a twist at the end of the first episode. Elfen Lead, Goblin Slayer, Shield Hero, Akamega Kill, they did that. Frieren did not, therefore the subversion came from the viewer who had different expectations. He assumed all shonen are about men shouting and changing hair colors and got something different. He fooled himself, basically. He set the expectations, and he subverted them. He even admits it right here.
How the series changed how I view stories?
Same thing with Danmachi. Nobody gives a shit about the world building. It's a harem based on a boob string. This is what it was conceived to be all along, and no matter what you think it's about and what works best in it, doesn't mean shit. By the way, the chibi comedy in Fullmetal Alchemist is so bad, the show would be so much better without it, and it really subverted my expectations because it didn't take place during the 1980s and didn't have a space armada. What a deconstruction! It really changed the way I view school comedies.